This is video number 4 of our little shooter tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to start working on an enemy. So the first thing that you need to do is find yourself an enemy out of the library. So you can pick anything that you want as an enemy that is going to be attacking your hero. I've already got one figured out. I'm going to bring in my enemy sprite. There's my enemy. It is, of course, a starfish. I've changed him a bit. He's just the starfish out of the library. I just changed him a little bit. Make sure that he's named enemy, because again, we'll use that name for reference as we go. I'll pause here for a second. You find yourself an enemy. All right, now we've got this enemy set up. He's too big. We're going to make some changes. He's going to work almost identically to the hero shot, with the exception of we're going to have him work automatically instead of having us hit a button in order to get the enemies to show up. So we'll get enemies automatically generated, and we're going to generate these enemies through cloning the same way that we made cloning through the hero shot. The enemy is also too big, and we're going to shrink our enemy down to about the same size as our hero is. So to get started with this, we're going to come back over here to events, and we're going to bring in when I receive start. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shrink this guy down. I'm going to set him to about the same size. He's about the same size as my hero, right about like that. Very similar in size. For mine, it's 35%. For yours, again, it will be different. Now, to get him to move, we want him to move in the downward direction. And of course, when we have a quick look at our hero shot code, we got it pointed in direction 0. Well, we want to go exactly the opposite of direction 0. So if 0 takes you up the screen, 180 degrees will take you down the screen. So we'll come back here to a point in direction. We'll throw that in here of 180 degrees. Then we are going to nicely take this and build a number of clones automatically. With the hero shot, we had to do this forever if key pressed. Well, we're not going to need a key pressed, and we're not going to need a forever for this. We're going to make a finite number of enemies, and we're going to start with a simple number. You can change this later on in the game if you like, but we're going to start with a really simple number. We're going to bring in a different kind of repeating structure. Instead of just doing a forever loop, we'll bring in a repeat, and we're going to have this structure repeat 5 times. And 5 times, we're quickly going to have it make clone of myself here, create clone of myself. So when we run this, we should get automatically 5 clones. So 5 clones right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good, so we got our clones sitting in place. Nicely done. Now we've got those clones. What are we going to do with those clones? Well, we're going to position those clones near the top of the screen. Not only are we going to position those clones near the top of the screen, we're going to get those clones moving towards the bottom of the screen. So the code we need for that, we need a when I start as a clone to pull up in here. Now, for our hero shot, in order to get our hero shot to move, if we have a look, we used this repeat until Y position is greater than 175, move 10 steps, or repeat until Y position is greater than 175, move 10 steps. We're going to use almost this exact code, but instead of doing 175, we're going towards the bottom of the screen. So if this is 0, the bottom of the screen is negative 180. So we're going to use a very similar piece of code to that. So we're going to bring in a let's have a look here. I'm going to bring in a repeat until. We're going to bring in the operator. We're going to bring in a less than operator this time instead of a greater than operator. And then we're going to bring in a motion, Y position is less than negative 175. We'll do a move 10 steps. And if we run that, let's see, I may have to run the whole game. I've made a quick mistake. I'll see where I've made my mistake here. Actually, I haven't made a mistake. What actually happened was all my things went to the bottom of the screen. So if I stop the game, take my starfish, move it to the top, and then run this thing, he'll drop to the bottom of the screen. Now, the thing is, all the clones are actually still there with him. So what we need to do in order to make it look proper, because we just have all the clones dropping in the same position, is we actually are going to have the clones randomly generate themselves across the top of the screen when they start. So to get that done, we're going to grab a quick go to XY, and we don't want them all at the same spot. So we're going to have a pick random X, and we want them to generate somewhere across the top of the screen. So we know over here is -240. We know way over here is 240 because the whole thing's 480 wide. So somewhere between -240 and 240, we're going to want these guys to spawn. Now we can do that nicely in here, create a clone of myself, -240 to 40, and we want it to generate near the top of the screen. So near the top of the screen, we'll have them generate at 175 pixels. So every time we start, this guy should fall in another spot. Now we've just got one clone there. There we go. Every time we hit this over here, we're generating 5 enemies. And those 5 enemies are all running down to the bottom of the screen, stopping at about -175. So generating 5, having them pick a random spot between -40 and 240 to spawn themselves, somewhere at the top of the screen, then repeating Y until it is less than 175, they're moving 10 steps. And then once they hit that far, they stop. So how do we deal with those guys stopping at the bottom of the screen? Well, to deal with them stopping at the bottom of the screen is exactly how we dealt with our shots. In order to get rid of those shots, we had to use this piece of code to call delete this clone. And we're going to do exactly the same thing over here. We're going to go to control. We're going to grab a delete this clone. So now we start and we hit this thing again. Our clones go to the bottom. Our clones disappear. Now, when we run the game, this here should continually loop. And this is going to continually loop because what we're going to do to make sure that this always continues to happen is we're going to add some more parts to this. But whenever we run this, you'll also notice that we still have the original guy showing right here. And we don't want the original guy to show. So our original, we're going to come over here and we're going to do a hide. But then we want the clones to show. So we're going to throw a clone right in here to show. And now when we run this, the original's hidden, the clones drop to the bottom of the screen. Great, clones drop to the bottom of the screen. Well, what happens next? How are we going to get those clones to jump back up to the top of the screen? Well, it's going to require a little bit of a change for what we've got going on. All right, now, in order to make that change, in order to make our enemies hit the bottom of the screen and respawn, we're going to rebuild this a little bit. So we're just going to pull this stuff off. We're going to bring in a forever loop now. So say we keep changing things because we build things modular. We get one thing to work at a time, then we change it a bit, change it a bit. So I'm going to do a forever. Once it spawns, move 10 steps. That's great. That will get things going, moving towards the bottom of the screen. And then instead of using this repeat until, I'm going to throw an if in here, right below the move 10 steps. And then I'm going to borrow this code. If Y position is less than -175, we're actually not going to delete the clone right away. What we're going to do is when they hit the bottom of the screen, we're actually going to have them respawn to the top automatically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow this little piece of code. And now what's going to happen when we play this thing is they're going to hit the bottom of the screen and automatically randomly generate back up at the top of the screen. Now what that does for us is we now have a random set of running enemies. And right now, moving 10 steps, they're moving fast. They're moving too fast. So let's just slow them down to 5 for now. What we're going to do later on in the game is we're going to take those enemies and we're going to actually have them speed up the longer the game goes. So the more enemies you hit, the more enemies you shoot, the quicker the enemies are going to come at you. And right now, we've got enemies coming down the screen. Now, if we go back to the play button and we start right from the beginning, and I play this game, we shoot, but all of our bullets pass through the enemies, and the enemies pass through us. So our next bit is going to deal with shooting the enemies, as well as having the enemies touch the hero, and basically a quick game over and reset the game and reset the play button. So that'll be in our next little video.